I want to start today by talking directly to you, specifically about, well, the state of your mind right now.
Hmm.
If you've been feeling this really specific, just dense kind of heaviness lately, I want you to know you're not imagining it.
Oh, for sure.
I was looking at the news this morning, just the sheer volume of it all, and I had this visceral reaction. I just had to put my phone down.
It's the doom scrolling effect, but it feels deeper than that recently, doesn't it? It's not just bad news.
No, it is not. It feels less like news and more like, I don't know, almost a moral assault.
Yeah.
We look up and we see leaders, people who, hold the keys to the kingdom, who seem to be operating with a complete
A vacuum.
vacuum, exactly,
Yeah.
where their competence and compassion should be. It feels like we're watching a real-time collapse of basic ethics.
And that feeling is just so disorienting. I mean, when the people steering the ship seem to lack basic humanity, it creates this profound sense of instability. It's exhausting.
Exhausting is the word.
And for a lot of us, I think that exhaustion is turning into a sort of paralysis.
It is, and that's actually the launching pad for our deep dive today. We're going to acknowledge that weight. We're not going to pretend it isn't there.
Right. No, looking on the bright side.
No, but, and this is the important part, we aren't just going to sit in it. We're going to try to build a framework to understand it.
Right. Because wallowing is easy, but it's not useful. We need a map. We need to know where we are so we can figure out how to move forward.
And to build that map, we're looking at a really potent piece of writing. It's by John Novick Jr.
The essay, Our Inescapable Network of Mutuality.
Yes. And I think what grabbed me about this piece is that Novick doesn't try to gaslight you. He
Yeah.
doesn't say things are okay. He doesn't sugarcoat the reality of American leadership.
Not at all. He validates the shock. He validates the exhaustion. But then he does this very interesting pivot.
Mm-hmm.
He takes that modern anxiety, that feeling that everything is falling apart right now, and he anchors it in history.
Mm.
He argues that what we're seeing isn't a glitch, and it is definitely not new.
And that is the mission. We're going to unpack Novick's argument that this bad leadership has a historical lineage.
Yeah.
And then we're going to explore what he calls a transformative ethic, which he borrows from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that might actually offer a way to survive it without losing our minds.
It's less about fixing the news cycle and more about fortifying yourself against it.
Exactly. Finding a way to stand firm when the ground feels so shaky. So let's get into the text.
Okay.
Novick starts by addressing the frequency, depth, and sheer volume of social injustices today. He calls them shocking. But then he drops the hammer. He says these events did not appear suddenly from nowhere.
And this is the demythologizing part of his argument. I think a lot of us feel like, wow, things have really gone off the rails recently.
We're like there was some golden age of civility that we just lost.
Exactly. And Novick says, absolutely not.
He takes a really harsh look at the timeline. What's his specific claim here? Because it feels pretty aggressive when you first read it.
It is aggressive, but history is aggressive. He argues that for the last 250 years, American history has been defined by a very specific behavior from its leadership class.
Okay.
He says that political leaders and, quote, Americans of power and means have consistently used their positions to do four things. And he uses four very heavy verbs.
What are they?
Scapegoat, dehumanize,
Whoa.
control,
Mm-hmm.
and kill.
Okay, let's pause on that. Scapegoat, dehumanize, control, and kill. That is an incredibly bleak assessment of American leadership. Kill is. That's a particularly strong word for political strategy.
It is, but Novick is looking at the historical record for specific groups. He lists them. Folks of color, immigrants, refugees, the working poor.
And their allies.
And their allies, yeah.
Yeah.
When he says kill, he isn't just speaking metaphorically. He's talking about the physical consequences of policy, of policing, of neglect over 2.5 centuries.
So he's talking about systems.
Exactly. He's talking about how power protects itself. If you look at the last 250 years, the playbook hasn't really changed much. Well, if you're in power and you want to stay there, you find a group to blame. That's the scapegoating.
Right.
You convince the public that this group isn't like us. That's the dehumanizing. Then you pass laws to restrict them. That's control. And the violence. Well, the violence enforces the control.
So when we see a leader today targeting a vulnerable group, say refugees or the poor, Novick is saying we shouldn't see that as some shocking new low.
Precisely. We shouldn't be clutching our pearls and saying, I can't believe this is happening in America.
Because it's a feature, not a bug.
It is a feature of the system. It's a repeatable historical pattern of power preservation. If you're a person of power and means, the playbook says, find a scapegoat, dehumanize them, control them, and if necessary, eliminate them.
That is sobering. But I guess it's also clarifying, if you stop expecting leaders to be benevolent because you realize the historical pattern is actually predation, you stop being so shocked every time you open your newsfeed.
It removes the element of surprise,
Right.
which helps with the exhaustion. If you realize this is a 250-year-old machine doing what it was built to do, you can stop asking, why is this happening? And start asking, how do we dismantle it?
Or at least, how do we survive it?
Exactly.
Which brings us to the central figure of the essay. To counter this 250-year pattern, Novick brings in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but, and I really appreciated this, he doesn't give us the Hallmark card version of Dr. King.
Oh, absolutely. The sanitized version.
Yes.
The one that everyone, even the people who oppose his ideas, feels comfortable quoting in February.
Yeah.
Novick just refuses to give us that version.
Instead, he centers the whole essay around a specific image. It's Dr. King, but he's not at a podium giving the I Have a Dream speech.
No, he's not marching with arms linked. It's Dr. King in a jail cell.
That's the one. He's just sitting there, his hand is near his face, and he's looking out through the bars. It's a quiet image, but it speaks volumes.
And Novick uses it to point out this massive cognitive dissonance we have today. Because in 2024, if you ask the average person to describe MLK, what do they say?
Oh, he's a secular saint, the moral compass of the nation.
Right. We use words like righteous, courageous, principled, peaceful. He's the standard. If you're a leader today, you want to be compared to King.
For sure. But Novick reminds us that this was not the reality he lived in. To the establishment of his time, to those leaders of power and means, he wasn't a hero.
He was a criminal. He was a threat, a massive threat. And Novick really brings the receipts here to remind us what that actually looked like.
It's not like he was just disliked.
No, or critiqued in the papers. He was arrested nearly 30 times.
30 times. I think people just gloss over that number. Can you imagine a modern public figure, someone we respect, being arrested 30 times?
It would be framed as absolute chaos. They'd paint him as an anarchist. And it wasn't just, local sheriffs going rogue in small towns.
No.
He was targeted by the FBI in a taxpayer-funded covert operation.
And I want to be clear here, because covert operations sounds like spy movie stuff.
But it was real life.
This was not the FBI protecting him?
No. This was COINTELPRO. The specific goal of the operation was to discredit, humiliate, and neutralize him. They wiretapped him. They sent him anonymous letters suggesting he commit suicide.
It's just horrifying.
This was the federal government using its vast resources to destroy a man they saw as a danger to the status quo.
And Novick mentions the physical danger, too.
Yeah.
The rocks and bricks thrown at him in public.
And the half-hearted protection from law enforcement when those bricks were flying. That phrase really stuck with me. Half-hearted protection.
It's almost worse than no protection, isn't it?
It is. It's the illusion of safety.
So Novick has this line that it really struck me. He writes, Martin Luther King Jr. to most of America was a criminal long before he was a hero.
And that is the key insight. We love the hero version because it's safe. The hero version is statue. It can't talk back.
Right.
But the criminal version, the man sitting in that jail cell, that's the version that actually changed things. That's the one who disrupted the system.
So the question is, why? Why was he targeted so aggressively? Was it just racism? Or was it because he was breaking the law?
Well, Novick argues that the hostility wasn't because King was failing. It wasn't because he was wrong.
It was because he was succeeding.
Exactly.
Succeeding at what, exactly?
Succeeding in breaking that 250-year pattern we talked about. He was successfully inspiring people to collectively demand an America that was decent, equitable, and just. When you have a system built on control and dehumanization, and someone comes along and successfully organizes people against that, the system attacks. It has to.
That really reframes the frustration we feel today. If you're a listener involved in activism or even just advocating for basic human rights, and you feel like the pushback is getting louder,
it might just mean you're winning. The bricks, the arrests, the surveillance Novick is suggesting that these are indicators of impact. If you weren't effective, they would just ignore you.
So the hostility is proof that the status quo feels threatened. So Novick takes us from this general history to a very specific moment. Spring of 1963, Birmingham, Alabama.
This is Dr. King's most famous incarceration, as Novick puts it.
And this is where the letter from Birmingham jail comes from. Now, I feel like most of us were assigned this in high school. We stemmed it.
Memorized a quote for a test, yeah.
And moved on. But Novick really wants us to look at the philosophy inside it.
It's a foundational document. Novick explains that King used this time while sitting in that cell to outline the spiritual and philosophical beliefs that were driving his struggle against the oppressive shackles of segregation.
Novick pulls out one specific excerpt that he believes is the heart of the matter. I have it here, and I want us to really dissect it, because on the surface, it sounds like nice poetry, but I think there's some heavy systems theory under it.
Let's hear it.
Okay, King writes, in a real sense, all life is interrelated. All men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny.
Single garment of destiny. That's such a vivid image.
Isn't it? Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And then he hits us with this. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be.
Wow.
And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality.
That last phrase. That's the kicker for me. The interrelated structure of reality.
What do you think he means by structure of reality? Because that sounds almost scientific.
It is. He's moving the conversation out of the realm of just morality or kindness and into the realm of, like, physics.
Okay.
He isn't just saying, it would be nice if we helped each other. He's saying, this is how the universe is mechanically constructed. We're not independent operators. We're nodes in a network.
The network of mutuality.
Exactly. Think about that metaphor he uses, the garment of destiny. If you're wearing a sweater and you pull a thread on the left sleeve, the fabric on the right side bunches up. You can't isolate the damage.
The whole garment is affected.
It's a single unit. You can't burn half a sweater while you're wearing it and expect to be fine.
So if we apply that to the leadership critique Novick started with, if a leader dehumanizes a group of immigrants or cuts funding for the poor,
They aren't just hurting that specific group. They are damaging the structural integrity of the entire web. They're degrading the quality of life and the moral standing of everyone in the network, including themselves.
that's the part that really challenges the American ego, isn't it? The I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be.
It just destroys the myth of the self-made man.
Completely.
We love to think, I got mine, I worked hard, my success is independent of your failure. We build walls to protect our success. But King is saying that is physically impossible. You literally cannot reach your full potential if your neighbor is being oppressed.
Your rise is tethered to their fall.
Yes. It's such a radical thought, especially in a society that runs on competition. It's basically saying, my success depends on your well-being, not just for moral reasons, but for structural reasons. If you're sick, I'm at risk. If you're poor, my economy is unstable.
Which is why Novick latches onto this. He shares this personal detail in the essay. He first read this text as an English major at Loyola back in 1988.
A transformative moment for him, clearly. He says that even decades later, this quote is still the best definition of community he has ever seen.
And it's a definition of community that has teeth. It's not just potlucks.
No, it's shared destiny. Novick argues that our self-fulfillment, individually and as a community, is tied ultimately and inextricably to the self-fulfillment of those around us. You can't win if the team is losing.
So if we accept this premise, if we accept that we're all caught in this net, what do we actually do with that? Because it's a beautiful philosophy, but we're still dealing with that heavy weight of reality. Novick talks about application, right?
He does. He pivots to education. He
Yeah.
mentions NPS, which is the educational community he's part of, and he poses the million-dollar question. How do we raise children in this environment?
Oh, I think every parent listening just leaned in. Because that's the fear, isn't it? How do you raise a good kid, a kind kid, in a system that seems to reward bad behavior?
How do you teach them empathy when the leaders on TV are being cruel?
Yes.
Novick suggests we have to teach children that they are integral members of a community with voice and agency. But there's a nuance here that I love.
What's the nuance?
We celebrate their individual achievements, absolutely. We want them to shine, but we also have to make them acknowledge that no one achieves anything remarkable alone.
We have to bust the myth of the solo hero early on.
Yes. It's telling your kid, you did great on that test, but let's remember the teacher who taught you, the bus driver who got you there. It's seeing the invisible support. And then he drops this incredible line.
Which is?
Gratitude is not just a feeling, it's an action.
Gratitude is an action. I want to pause on that
Right.
because usually we think of gratitude as passive, something you feel in your heart.
A warm, fuzzy feeling, right?
Yeah.
But in the context of the network of mutuality, gratitude is maintenance. It's work. If you recognize that you're supported by this whole web of other people, teachers, workers, ancestors, civil rights leaders, then gratitude means you have an obligation to take care of that web.
That is a huge shift. It turns gratitude into a civic duty.
Exactly. If I'm grateful for my position, I have to work to ensure you have what you need to be what you ought to be. If I don't, I'm not actually grateful. I'm just lucky and selfish.
So real gratitude looks like advocacy. It looks like voting. It looks like protecting the vulnerable.
Yes. And that brings it all full circle. If we go back to the beginning, the bad leadership, the cruelty, the exhaustion, this action of gratitude seems to be the antidote.
It's the counterweight.
It is. And Novick admits, he's very honest here, that the world will continue to be a heavy and difficult weight to carry for the foreseeable future. He's not promising a utopia next Tuesday just because we read MLK.
Which I appreciate. I think we're all allergic to false hope right now. Don't tell me it's going to be fine if it's not going to be fine.
The leadership crisis is real. The cruelty is real. But, he argues, adopting this network of mutuality is a model for resilience.
He calls it a more meaningful, just joyful and sustainable way to be.
And sustainable is the key word there for me. Living in a state of constant conflict, viewing everyone as a competitor, that's exhausting. It burns everyone out. But living with the understanding that we're connected, that is sustainable. That builds something that can last.
It's a survival mechanism.
It is. Dr. King's philosophy wasn't just, high-minded idealism. It was a strategy for survival against a hostile state. It was a way to keep your humanity intact when everything around you was trying to strip it away.
So as we wrap this up, let's zoom out. We started with the listener who is overwhelmed, the one who looks at the news and just sees a void of ethics and feels like the world is collapsing.
And we found, through Novick, that this feeling isn't new. It's a response to a historical pattern that has been running for a long, long time.
Right.
But we also found that the resistance to it, the refusal to accept that cruelty, is also historic.
And we have this tool, this ethic of mutuality to help us navigate it. We don't have to fix the whole world alone.
No.
We just have to tend to our part of the web.
Right. We have to realize that our well-being is tied to everyone else's. And that realizing that isn't a burden, it's actually a relief. It means you're not in this alone.
It makes me think about that quote again. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. It completely changes how you define winning.
It really does.
Yeah.
If our current leaders are failing because they refuse to see this mutuality, because they think they can win by making others lose, how does your personal definition of success need to change?
That is the question to leave on. When you realize you cannot fully succeed while others are being oppressed, what does your ambition even look like? Does it look like climbing a ladder?
Or does it look like weaving a stronger net? It's a big question. But I think Dr. King and John Novick Jr. would say it's the only question that matters right now.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Take care of yourselves and take care of your network.
See you next time.